All right, let's see what comes out. It is 8:34 a.m. on Monday, the 23rd of March, and it's sprinkling just a little bit. I have my umbrella at the ready, but yeah. Oh no, I'm good. Thank you. Just turning down another ride, keeping my trail name alive, you know. Today's going to be like a 13-mile road walk, I think. Somewhere thereabouts. But yeah, didn't make a clip last night, and I've been up since 5 a.m. this morning. So we're in that critical period where most of the levels are right, you know. Not a very restful evening. Slept very poorly. Expletives to describe it come to mind, but I'll spare you, and I'll put my hat over my phone so that the wind doesn't affect it as much. But yeah, I didn't make a clip last night, obviously, because I wanted to be able to actually enjoy the hostel in the way that I wanted to enjoy it, which, you know, primarily meant not being on my phone and just being around whoever was at the hostel and talking, which I certainly had a great time of doing. I guess I got into the hostel at about 4 yesterday. I don't think there was too much to say, wow, it's windy, about the hike into the hostel. Nothing that I really recall. It was a lot of descending, and after I took a nice break in the middle of my day at a water source, I actually put my sandals on for the rest of the day, just because I knew I was going to be going down like 3,000 feet, and rather than having my tender toes smash into the front of my feet, my shoes rather, over and over again, I thought that I would just elect to spare myself. But beyond that, ran into a few people, and I'm actually having a very strong sense of deja vu right now, because I remember last time in 2022 that, God, this wind sucks, dude. And this rain is coming on a little strongly. I didn't really prepare for rain. I knew that it was in the forecast, but I was like, is it even going to rain though? Looks like the answer is yes. But the accumulation is only supposed to be like 0.1 for the day, so I'll call that a dry day and a reacclimation fee. But yeah, got in around 4, and I had decided I wasn't initially going to do laundry, because I was just like, I'd rather just like chill and not even worry about it. But, you know, noticing the quality of my socks and how bad I smelled, I was like, well, if I'm going to take a shower, I might as well do laundry. So there was about an hour of needful chores that I did from 4 to 5. It didn't hurt that the owner of the hostel told me that the laundry wasn't even actually available for another hour because he was doing his own. I had the hostel completely to myself last night, which was kind of interesting for a place that probably houses like anywhere between 20 and 25 people a night, I suppose, possibly, at the upper limits. Oh, the deja vu, though. So I remember in 2022 walking on this road, and it also being extremely windy, but it was extremely cold. I remember being very, very upset by how cold it was, because I was getting buffeted by these really strong gusts, much like I am now. However, I'm in, you know, shorts and sandals. It's a very different experience, but yeah, last time I remember I walked into Hampton, or not Hampton, but some little small town, I guess, in east of Roan Mountain, and I did my own little resupply. I don't really remember exactly what led me to want to do that, but for whatever reason, it might have just been to look for hiker wine, as I had grown quite fond of having with me whenever possible, you know. And I guess that's also where I came to the fear that they might not sell beer on Sundays at Station 19E, because I think even though I had walked all that distance into town, they didn't sell alcohol for like another few hours or something like that. I was like, man, like, I don't consider myself an alcoholic, but if I did, it might go a little something like waiting around for 3 hours in order to get some wine, instead of returning to the trail and just doing the needful. So anyway, that memory was just going through my mind. But back to the hostel experience. I love repacking all of my gear and evaluating things, and especially, it's close to a month that I've been doing this, and so I've had a lot of time to determine like what I actually use in my pack and how often, and if it actually still has any utility. And so I think I have decided to send a few things back to my parents. Hey, shout out to my parents. One is a multi-tool, very small multi-tool that typically lives in my fanny pack, but I just don't anticipate having to need that. And it's probably the heaviest thing in my fanny pack. It's not heavy, but it's the heaviest thing, and so it's a little nicer to not have that additional weight there, just for I don't know, mental health. Just like, no, the reality of the fact that everything that I'm carrying is now weighing me down in a very predictable way makes it much easier to brutally decide what should stay and what should go. So I'm going to send that home along with my titanium trowel. I have never ever used that titanium trowel. Let me rephrase that. I might have used it initially when I got it because I was excited to have it. I thought it was cool. It's something you use to dig cat holes with, and it also, in a pinch, can double as a tent stake. But I never use it, and I never have used it on a thru hike. My methodology using the bidet doesn't require all the same considerations as someone who would be using toilet paper, because I think, the toilet paper is like, not that it's purely about decomposition rates when it comes to digging cat holes, but the toilet paper is the thing that will take the longest to break down, compared to your leavings. And I always have a different method. So, and I've run this by ridge runners and stuff like that, but basically I try to only use the bathroom in places that are random. And then also I try to do it so that I can put a large log or a large rock on top of what I leave, which I think helps the decomposition, because, there's a little bit of pressure involved now. I also mix in water and soil from the bidet itself, which is what you're supposed to do with cat holes anyway. But a little bit of pressure. I mean, if it's good for diamonds, it's good for the opposite. And also, all that just to say, I don't use the trowel. I use a different method that doesn't require anything, because I can always usually dig a hole with a stick or my trekking pole if I even need to do that much. Because again, if you're strategic about it, you can kind of just put it in a place where it's going to be pretty actively encouraged to decompose. Okay, I think the wind has chilled a little bit, at least for the moment. I've got my umbrella out. And I'm also sending back my pan. Something smells like it's dead over here. I smelled this yesterday too. The pan plan. Oh, wow, what is that? Oh my God, that's a horse. Wow, that's insane. Wow. I did not expect to see that. It smells completely just like every other dead thing I've ever smelled too. It's kind of surprising, having spent so much time with horses, allegedly. Strike that from the record. Anyway, so I'm sending back my pan too. It worked really good in theory, having a pan with me. Like, I was like, that's like a really smart way to save money. And it worked really well when I had it in San Francisco. I was able to make pretty luxurious meals, like, compared to what you would expect the average recreational homeless person to be eating. Like, I could have eggs and meat. That's about it. But that's a lot better in numerous ways than, ramen and canned tuna or whatever. But I haven't used that pan since Dahlonega, so I've never used it once on trail. And having recently been in Irwin, I kind of realized that it seems like a bad bet for me to think that I could actually budget in time on a given day to make food that way. Like, I think it's actually worth the opportunity cost at this point to be able to get dense calories from real food by going to fast food restaurants and grocery stores, basically. I just thinking about the other day when I did walk through Irwin, if I had also had to make something, because I was thinking that I would when I first was walking towards Irwin, I was like, I'll get some hamburger or something. But if I had had to use that pan, that would have probably taken me an extra 30 minutes, like best case scenario too. Like, honestly, it probably would have taken longer than 30 minutes just because I have standards for like how clean I want the pan to be afterwards and, all that kind of stuff. There's like a laborious process of cleaning everything, and to my satisfaction, that requires time. And so anyway, not having used that thing, I don't know how much it weighs, but it's got to be at least a pound. I could look it up. I should look it up. Although, I suppose I don't really need to, because I'm going to take all this stuff to the post office this morning and mail it back, so they'll weigh it for me, and I'll know. I'll try to report back, but I'm anticipating if the scale at the hostel was at all accurate, that it might be about 2 pounds of stuff that I'm getting rid of, which, that's a whole liter of water that I could carry and not even feel compared to the pan and all that other junk. So anyway, I went through all my stuff and then took a shower and put my laundry in, and then I was done, and I was able to actually hang out with the bartender, some of the patrons, and it was a good old time. Had fun, got to chat with people, and I was kind of telling one couple that was in there for a bit that like they had some plans to go to Spain to do the Caminos in the near future, and I was like, oh, now that you mention it, that's kind of like what I'm trying to do with the Appalachian Trail. It's like, I think that the trail is great, and again, having done it at least once in the prescribed manner that you are quote-unquote supposed to, like, I know that can be done, but it's just so unpleasant, and I like the unpleasantness of it, but I don't want it all the time. And one of the things about the Caminos is that you're walking through towns every day. You're going through little villages. You're stopping at restaurants and interacting with people. You also get to carry less for the same reason, just as I'm exploiting on my end. And yeah, I think I love hanging out with the hikers because it's just so easy to connect in the shared struggle of the endeavor. But you don't want to, I shouldn't say you, let's use I statements. I don't want to like pretend that this corridor that I'm walking through is like all of reality, there's certainly more to the surroundings than just the Appalachian Trail, and there are just a lot of benefits to being able to go into town. So, conversations like that, things about life, jobs, work, all that kind of stuff. And there was another group of people who had been on Lake Watauga all day that I hung out with after the other couple left. And yeah, I guess I was downstairs for about 2.5 hours. And then I was just like, all right, well, it's like 8 o'clock. I think I'm ready to start getting cozy, and so went back upstairs, got in bed, and I have to say the first thing that wasn't sitting very well with me about the hostel, at least in terms of it being like a forebodance about future sleep efforts, was just that the room I was in was really hot, and it was strange because it wasn't really, I know it was residual ambient heat from the day, and the room had no fan, no air conditioning unit. It was just a window, and so the room actually did cool down a lot, but it took hours. Like, I don't think it was even 1 a.m. until I was actually able to pull some covers over myself to stop from sweating, you know? And then, you know, it was a fitful night of sleep, because it was just like, it was like the opposite of the boiling frog. It was like the frog turning into an ice cube. And it just took a really long time. And then at 5 a.m., the roosters started up, and I really enjoyed listening to their, you know, greeting of the morning symphony. I made a little clip of it because I was so tickled. But basically, there were two roosters. One would do his, you know, stereotypical call, and then the other one would do it, but he was like a half step off. So the first rooster would be like, "Cook-a-doo-doo-doo," and then the other one would respond after, you know, 45 seconds. It'd be like, "Cook-a-doo-doo-doo." And sometimes they would start at the same time, and you could actually hear the dissonance in the tones. It was funny. It was like the ugliest harmony you can ever imagine. But hey, I mean, what do you expect from dinosaurs, right? They're not... There's a reason why there's no famous operatic dinosaur singers, you know? They had a very basic idea of harmony and melody. But anyway, so yeah, a fitful night. Got up at 5, did some more digital needfuls, drank some coffee, had a breakfast essential, went through my pack one more time just to confirm with myself that I was happy with where everything was, you know. God, it really is quite windy in this spot yet again. Got my umbrella that I hope is causing a good enough windbreak for the clip. Oof. This is annoying. I might end up screaming at the wind like I did last time. And so yeah, a nice productive morning. And my general plan for today is to go into Roan Mountain, and I need to do a very small resupply. And then I'm going to walk over to a road that should take me back up to the Appalachian Trail. And if all things remain equal, I plan to actually stay at another hostel tonight, which is called the Kincora. I think it's just called the Kincora Hostel. And there's a bunch of really good comments on Far Out about staying there, and it's also just a $5 suggested donation fee. But it sounds like the guy who runs it is really cool, and I would enjoy spending time with him. So my plan is to go there and stay for the night, and then actually road walk the day after into, I forget the name of the town, it might be Hampton, I can't remember, but then road walk out of it. And then there's not really another opportunity for me to road walk until after Damascus, Virginia, which I'm about 75 miles away from at this point. So, you know, very, very close, which is really cool, because to me, Damascus is a really important milestone. There's a lot of important milestones, but Damascus is one that kind of stands above the rest, at least to this point on the trail. It's 500 miles in, more or less, and so, you know, you've done an eighth of the trail at that point, and you don't fully have your trail legs, because for sure, I know in 2019, it wasn't until after Damascus that I experienced like some of the worst pain that I had and some of the most trying times of me being unsure if the pain I was experiencing would get worse, or if it was just like all the other pain that had preceded it, if eventually it would basically just go away. And thankfully, it did just go away. But all that just to say, Damascus is like a big deal, you know. And so I won't have very many opportunities, like I said, to road walk between some point tomorrow and the trail, but that's fine. Or the Damascus, I should say. There's like salt all over the road from the recent weather. I got like fragments of stuff in my sandals which don't feel good. That is one annoying part about wearing sandals. Not that there's not a plethora of annoying parts. And I guess I have two things written down. I don't know how much I'll have to say, but hey, that's what we're here for. I also need to pee. but there's not a good assortment of places to do so. So we'll see how desperate I get. Anyway, the first one was that it was interesting yesterday walking up Roan Mountain on a Sunday because there were a lot of other people out there hiking some of the mountains. It's the most day hikers I think I've seen the entire time I've been out here, which, you know, on a nice weekend day is something that I will be able to count on as I keep going on the trail. But yeah, when you happen to be going through an area that is generally enjoyed by the public, it's just interesting to see how quickly, like, all the people kind of pop out of nowhere, and then how quickly they disappear after the pretty part is done. Because it was like, you know, 16 and a half miles something yesterday for me to do what I did, and you know, most of that was just like very boring trail, you know, just like not the awe-inspiring vistas of Roan Mountain or Big Hump and Little Hump Mountain. Like, those were pretty cool as far as the AT goes. Like, you don't often have views like that where there's like basically a bald, and then you just walk through this trail that you can see for miles depending on where you are on these little mountains. That was cool, but again, very interesting to see, like, you know, wherever the easiest access point, which I guess yesterday was Carver Gap. From that point, I guess most people probably just do out and backs. Like, you know, you go up to the pretty thing and then you have to kind of go back to your car. Otherwise, much like myself, you'll have to walk an additional like 10 miles to get to the next parking area. So just an interesting little fun thing to consider, because yeah, you don't oftentimes see people in most parts of the Appalachian Trail, because, like, you know, it's just other through hikers and we're all spaced out at random intervals and things like that. So yeah, I just enjoyed that observation. The other thing, which I wrote a good title for, I hope it's not too windy. I really have no way of telling at this point. But wait, what? Okay, I'm gonna hope that said something else. I just got distracted. Okay. The title for this is Instagram Data Centers and Platforming Unpopular Opinions. I think I'm about to have to sneeze too. I just looked at my recorder app and it said that it was paused, but I hope that's not true, or that it wasn't referring to the recorder app itself. We'll see, I suppose. But this morning I've been interested in, like, at least having a conversation at some point with the woman Balsack, you know, who is doing the most known miles challenge. I was able to find her Instagram and, like, see what the details were that would satisfy some of my general wonderings. But, you know, I don't think that she's too far in front of me, but I have no idea. I also noticed that her Instagram feed was, like, really, really out of date. Like, I think her last post was from 5 days ago, and that was when she and her partner were still on the Florida Trail. And I know, especially with women, a lot of them will post things, like, extremely purposefully out of date so that people can't find them. That's not what I'm trying to do. I'm just kind of curious to see, like, because I've known one other person, his name was Professor, and he attempted the same thing in 2022, and he did not succeed in that goal specifically, but it did seem like he had a really good time. But it was interesting because, you know, as, like, unexpected happenings continued to accrue for him, like the number of miles that he would have to do on any given day, like the average that he had to do, it just got to an absurd level where, you know, he would have to do, like, I don't know, 40 plus miles a day for, like, the rest of the year at a certain point in order to hit that goal, because, like, you know, time had gotten away from him. And I certainly didn't envy him the task that he was attempting, because I was like, God, that sounds so miserable. Like, you know, again, there is a thing, in case you're not aware, called the calendar triple crown. Oh my God, the wind is Let's get my hat again. Hold on. I hate the wind most of the time. It was actually really nice last night. When I was sweating in my bunk, the only thing that gave me any hope for the future was the occasional gust that would hit my window and come into my room. But so there's something called the calendar year Triple Crown, and that's when a human being decides that they want to hike the Appalachian Trail, the Continental Divide Trail, and the Pacific Crest Trail in 1 year, which again, I'm just like, God bless y'all. There's certainly no accounting for taste. I would never want to do that. There's just nothing sounds fun about that. I know exactly what it feels like to be on an endurance challenge and to have to stick to a very specific schedule. I feel like that's kind of the way I initially biked to New York City in 2017. I had very ambitious requirements. Every single day was at least a century, and the last 2 days were back-to-back 150-mile days. And I mean, it was fun. I had a good time, but it also sucked a lot. The inflexibility of a schedule like that, which I can only assume would be an absolute requirement for something like an attempt at the Triple Crown, what is it? Calendar Triple Crown? Yeah. That just, to me, I'm just yeah, I mean, you could do that, but why? It's so not fun. It's just the extent of the creative challenges that people who do stuff like this, that's just one of the things that someone invented at some point, much like the 4-state challenge and other things. I personally, this is obvious because I'm the one doing it, and also constructing it and judging it, I think this is a really cool way to add an additional element. I mean, it doesn't even have to be a challenge, It's not to say that, a lot of people don't even like road walking, so maybe it would be a more unique challenge than doing something else. But in any case, yeah, I marvel at people who want to do something like that, because the physical part isn't the interesting part to me. It's the mental part. It's just walk me through, and you don't have to do this, but my thought process is walk me through where this becomes an attractive idea from your perspective. And again, no judgment. Not trying to hurt people's feelings. I'm just man, we are very different people, and I would just love to be able to highlight one glaring reason for why that might be, if I could hear from your perspective why you want to do what you're doing, So, in any case, man, I really have to pee now, Remember when I said I earlier had to pee? Well, it's gotten worse. But I think I've located a good spot, so I'm feeling good about it. I got on Instagram in order to find Balzac's itinerary and stuff like that, And I noticed that there was a comment on a post from Backpacker Radio podcast from when I was interviewed by them back in September. And it was me talking about AI, no surprise there. And the comment was from somebody, it said something to the effect of are you guys really not so, what was it? It was a double negative, so it's kind of hard to reconstruct because it's not a way I would have spoken or written something. Or it was how can you not have a profound sense of disappointment in yourself for giving a platform to ideas like these, talking about what I was saying about AI, And, I don't really care. As soon as I heard Joe Rogan many years ago talk about just post and ghost, I was yeah, that seems the healthiest way to pretty much interact with social media, especially from a perspective like his. If you're someone who is famous, and so you basically have to interact with social media in order to continue making money. God, he's so bad. Like, the best thing you could probably do is like just post your post and then like just not engage. And I completely subscribe to that. Not that I have the same scale of problem, but it was just interesting to see someone writing something negative about something that I felt positive about, you know? And so I was reflecting on that. And I guess the thing about it to me, if I were to clap back with facts, as they say, the interesting thing to me is that, and again, this goes back to that whole idea that the medium is the message. It's like, okay, so I'm like looking at this person. Oh, the wind stopped. I can put my hat back on. Also, I don't understand why wind is so intermittent. But anyway, what's up, cows? Let's have a zen. What's up, y'all? That's a small pen, my dudes. All right. Yeah, the interesting thing to me, and I think maybe this fact just isn't considered. But, you know, if you're upset, and again, this is not me trying to pick on people. This is me trying to dismantle someone else's negativity to see empathetically if I was in their shoes and I was being upset by things that actually had nothing to do with me. How would I temper those negative feelings? Should they ever occur to me, how would I logic my way out of something that is emotionally draining and psychologically disempowering? And so I was thinking about it, and I was like, you know, data centers, they don't just power like AI. Like, if you're using Instagram or any like big platform, social media app or e-commerce app or anything like that, you are utilizing data centers and power centers, you know? Like, it's interesting, and I feel like it's largely artificial. Put my hat back on. Put it on my phone anyway. I feel like it's like largely artificial that people disproportionately dislike AI data center usage and power usage as compared to the same facilities, again, that are used to host and deliver social media information back and forth. Like, it's the same thing. And so to focus in on one element of those things' usages, to me, there seems to be, I feel like there's an intellectual dishonesty there, because I feel like you're picking and choosing what you have decided is evil in terms of like actions, and you're conveniently, and I don't mean you, but one conveniently overlooks the fact that the same infrastructure was already taxing the environment in a similar way even before AI. And again, AI is actually built into these platforms now, so they really are one and the same. You can't say that there's like a data center for Instagram and then there's a data center for Meta's llama facility or whatever. I mean, they might be technically physically separate things, but they're all under the same flag, you know? And so I just, again, it bounces off me. Like, it doesn't upset me. I expect people to not agree with what I think about life because they haven't lived my life. And I'm sure the reasons why I feel the way that I do are foreign to them because they've had a completely different experience. Go figure. It's almost like we're completely different people or something, which we are. So, you know, again, trying to wrap my head around it because, you know, one of the most interesting human activities, I guess if you could call it that, I am fascinated by hoarders, and I don't think that that's too much of a surprise if you think about just the fact that, like, especially in this iteration of my life, like, I'm such a minimalist. Like, you know, there's not a part of me that like wishes for the future that I have a couch or like a bed or like a TV or even a house, really. Like, I'm not out here being like, oh, I can't wait to be comfortable again. Like, honestly, every hostel I've stayed at has been some of the worst sleep I've had out here. It's like, I don't know what it is. It's probably just me eating too much and drinking too much. But those facts aside, which are extremely inconvenient for me, it's just like, well, I'm losing the thread. I'm getting closer to town, and I was looking to see if there are any restaurants open. There's an exhaust shop that's open, or at least they forgot to turn off their sign. Kind of doubt that they're open. Oh, no, they are open. All right, my dudes. Dean's Garage. Yeah, all right. I see you, Dean's. But yeah, so hoarding, it fascinates me because it's just like, man, can you walk me through? And that's the thing that I love about like my own thoughts and then other people's thoughts as well. Because I'm like, I want you to walk me through the thought process that separates us. It's that kind of fascination. Oh, there's a Zen canister. I'm gonna not get it. Ooh, that kind of pains me to walk by. Oh well, it's fine enough. I'm sure there'll be others. Yeah, it's just not a convenient day to get Zen. I just don't want to do it. Then that happened pretty early on the bike ride. But yeah, just like walk me through how you can value this item. Like the thing about hoarding that I've always found fascinating is that ostensibly from a distance, and I could be wrong, but it looks like the primary constituent of what they are keeping is garbage. And I just don't understand how, like, a random newspaper from, 5 years ago that you put in a, completely dilapidated car for extra storage, and then you just have, hundreds of newspapers, and I don't even know what else you have. I'm like, why? What? Respectfully, again, I'm not trying to hurt your feelings, but can you explain to me, as a emotionally receptive human being, how this item holds value for you? What are you worried about in getting rid of it? And what does it represent in your possession? I cannot wrap my head around that. I guess I could try harder, try to understand it better. Yeah, what would that be like? Let me try to think. How could I wrap my head around? One of my general beliefs about life is that every single opinion and thought that can be experienced by a human necessitates that the opposite feeling and thought can also be had in a completely legitimate and valid way. So, as a thought experiment, what would it be like? Why would I care about a newspaper that was 4 years old? And why would I keep it in a car on my property that hasn't worked for decades and is succumbing to the elements? And then I'd imagine that there's probably a diffusion of importance. I would imagine that there's a system to it. I don't know what the system's goal is. My only thought would be that there's a pathological idea that this item, whatever it might be, could be useful in the future for something. And the things that it could be useful for, every item that this person comes in contact with, it's they have to have that conversation with themselves and the object, which I guess in fairness is actually very similar to the conversation I have with my own objects. But mine is, so here we go to the equal and opposite. It's the opposite, where it's you need to justify to me, item, how you might be useful ever. And if I cannot think of a probabilistic scenario where your existence would be worth your weight, literally, then you will not come with me. So I guess that's it. So I guess I have a very high barrier for me determining something's important, and relative to that, if this theory holds, that would mean others have a much lower barrier in terms of that. I guess another part could be financial. where like if you bought something, like it is profoundly wasteful to buy like a newspaper and then like throw it away like briefly after receiving it. You really are just like, you might as well have burned $2. Like, what information did you get from that like, first of all, in a modern context, you couldn't have gotten for free, but then also like you're probably going to forget most of what you read. You're basically just paying to forget something, and then also using paper in a very, very disposable way. And I don't have any problems with that myself. Like, hey, you do you, you know. But respectfully, I guess, you know, I'm remembering back to the Transamerica bike ride when I went through Kentucky, and like southeastern Kentucky, which was very, very rural. Oh, is this a Pokemon card? No, it's a football card. Lame. In 2020, when I biked cross country, going through Kentucky was a pretty harrowing experience, you know. Like a lot of specifically white poverty, and a lot of I don't know, it didn't really feel like the United States as much, you know. Like it was it just seemed deprived of modernity in like a really strange way, you know. Like, it's crazy to think, I was listening to Bill Bryson, you know, he's talking about the Appalachian Trail, and he was talking about the people in Georgia, North Carolina, and Tennessee, so like this area, how the poor population used to live up in the mountains, you know, and then they were pushed out, at least in the AT corridor, and pushed down into the valleys. And, you know, there was some description, I guess it was also coincidental with like people reading the book Deliverance, which portrayed, you know, hillbillies as kind of like the bedrock of the woods, the mountains. But yeah, just that like I guess poor people used to live up in the valleys. Why am I talking about that? I don't know. Oh, Kentucky Trans Am. I have more crap in my shoes. I should put some socks on. This is not comfortable. I was hoping that I could just like walk with my sandals and like really let my feet breathe, since it's going to be primarily road today, especially. You know, it's interesting. Another thing that I would highly recommend to people, if they begged me for advice, because I don't like to give it, would be to have like a pair of pretty solid walking sandals with you, just so you can have the option of like airing your feet out, or like I did yesterday, walking downhill without having to have your toes infinitely cramped over and over again into your shoe box front, you know. Like, it really is it's a pretty big game changer. You do have to be careful. I wore socks and gaiters with my sandals yesterday, and you have to be careful that you don't stab your foot with your trekking pole. I think that's probably one of the biggest concerns that I've had while doing this, you know. That would be very unfortunate and also very painful. It might be a hike ending injury, but, you know, calculated risks and things like that. By and large, I feel comfortable doing it, and honestly, it's almost a necessity at this point when it comes to certain days, you know. I wish if I had been a little bit more informed, you know, early on in the hike when I was road walking from Clayton, I probably would have road walked the whole way. Oh no. With my sandals. Doing it with my, whatever those shoes were, those Zero shoes, that sucked. That was completely unnecessary. I put socks on, and it's raining and windy. It's a beautiful day. Oh God. My balance is so compromised. I can't even stand on one foot. Should I put my gaiters on too? I probably should. Why not? That seems like that's actually going to be the most effective way of keeping all the crap out of my foot, out of my shoe. as it were. This is about to be so much better. This is almost worth the discomfort just to be able to resolve it so quickly. Nice clean socks. I have to do something about my pan. It's about to slip out. This little city's waking up, y'all. Let's see if I can, God, these sandals, they can be really annoying though. All right, let me put this thing in here. Pull this thing over here. Sandals and socks is a winning combo in my book, my dude. I don't know how audible all this is gonna be. Oh yeah, this feels legit. Oh yeah. God, sandals are annoying though, I'm telling you, man. Sometimes it's just like they have a mind of their own. I'm just like, why are you being so difficult? You're really just a sandal. Like, you don't have to have an opinion about me putting you on. Alright, this is going to be difficult. Hold on just a moment. Pause this real quick. That is so much more comfortable. Man, that was really annoying to do, but totally worth it. Go figure. Sounds a lot like life. Yeah, I mean, I guess that's it. You know, I'm not so interested in hoarders that, like, I would actually, like, watch television programs about them. I know that they have those, and I don't really care that much. I've just always been intrigued when I see it in real life. So I'm just like, what is that like? You know? What's that life like? Etc. But yeah, dude, I hope this has been audible enough. And I guess I'll leave it there for now, because I don't know. It's annoying me, the wind, and I'm worried. I'm oh so worried. But hey, I'll just think about other stuff. All right, love you, bye.